Welcome to episode 488 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer-director Bomani Story, who just did a cool horror film called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. It's a modern take on the classic Frankenstein story. He's got a great story on how he was able to get this script produced and get himself on as the director. He started out for a company working as an assistant editor, but he kept writing scripts, and eventually the company he was working for read his script, liked it, and decided to produce it. We go into great detail about how all of this came together for him, as well as talk about the early part of his career and how he got started. So stay tuned for that interview. SYS's six-figure screenplay contest is open for submissions. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. Our final deadline is July 31st, so if your script is ready, definitely submit now. We're looking for low-budget shorts and features. I'm defining low budget as less than six figures, in other words, less than $1 million US. We got lots of industry judges reading the scripts. In the later rounds, we're giving away thousands in cash and prizes. We have a short film script category as well, 30 pages or less. So if you have a low budget short script, by all means submit that too. I've got a number of industry judges who are looking specifically for short scripts. So hopefully we can find some homes for these short screenplays. If you want to submit to the contest or learn more about it, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode 488. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can get that by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Bomani Story. Here is the interview. Welcome, Bomani, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
I grew up back about an hour outside of LA. And I was doing film stuff in my high school. After I did that, my mother pointed out to me, that I have an interest in it, that I should pursue it. So, and I did like it. So I went into community college and took the film program there for 2 years. And then I transferred to USC to finish out doing film there, and basically been cutting my teeth in it ever since.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote my first feature-length screenplay called Rocksteady Row that went to Slam Dance, and then it won the jury and the audience award there. And then,
nice.
Yeah, it took off from there.
Perfect. I'm curious, just as a USC grad, obviously that's the most esteemed film program in the country. Now looking back on it, you've been out for a while. What is your recommendation if a young, high schooler that's interested in film as you are comes to you and says, "What do you think? Do I spend the money on film school? Do I just go out there and start making some films?" What is your advice to these folks?
Well, for me, I loved film school, and I loved going to SC.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I just loved my film trajectory. I loved it in high school. I loved it in community college. I loved it at SC. Honestly, it always kind of comes down to the person. For me personally, SC was a godsend. It really opened up like the tools, and it made me kind of be in a concentrated environment with filmmakers, people who are pursuing this in order to, whether it's passing different films to each other and like exploring and opening us up that way, and, building the craft and trying things, experimenting. And it's a perfect environment for you to be able to experiment and fail as well. So for me, like I loved USC. I thought it was great. It's just like, of course, there's always the story. You can take the tuition and go try to make your own film, but like, I don't know. I enjoyed, the time there and what it gave to me.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. So I'm curious, on IMDb, it looks like you have done a lot of editing and a lot of work in the camera department. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit. So you graduate from USC. How did you get some of these early jobs in the business?
Yeah, I was stumbling around trying to find it. Like,
that's pretty much the right answer. Exactly. I hope people really hear that, because that's the
yeah.
truth.
Yeah, I was writing my own short films on the side and like writing features, like trying to hopefully get something that clicks. In the meanwhile, I found assistant editing as my backbone, to stay alive. And
Hmm.
it's like as a tool. That's one thing I will say is like I think finding some kind of like a tool or a craft that you can do while unless you break out immediately, then do
Hmm.
your own thing. But like if you're like me where you're trying to break in and it took a little bit more time, it's just like you need something to keep you alive that pays fairly well. It's like, so assistant editing happened to be that, and it allowed me to control my time, be flexible,
Hmm.
and still be able to write.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so talk about that a little bit, your transition from assistant editor to writer director. You were obviously doing these shorts. You were, I'm sure, writing some feature film scripts at this. Did you use some of those contacts? And I always, you get a lot of people, I hear from a lot of people that are in these positions, these assistant positions. And, how do you actually traverse that landscape without being too pushy? Hey, I'm assistant editor, but in my free time, I'm a director. How do you do that without being annoying and being in a professional setting?
uh first and foremost, make sure you do your job.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Like, make sure you do that so that way you're less annoying.
Hmm.
But weirdly enough, the producers that got onto the script, I was AEing for them. And then they had the script while I was AEing for, they got past the script. And it happened to be the stuff that's in the vein that they wanted to create. So like it was one of those things where no wasted time.
Hmm.
I was good enough doing AE work, and I landed in a place that happened to also be doing, the types of movies that I wanted to do, at least for the script, so
Hmm.
that worked out, beautifully.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and this is just your opinion, but how much, okay, so they read the script, obviously they liked the script, and then they put this thing into production, but how much of it was just knowing you, having that relationship already with you? They knew you were a stand-up guy, they knew you were professional. And how much do you think that impacted them saying, you know what, let's go with this project as opposed to any number of other projects? They might have some other scripts that they like, but they don't know the writer like they did you. How much do you think that impacted their decision?
From what I hear, it sounds like it impacted it quite a bit because, people will look at you a certain way, depending on who you are. And like,
Hmm.
and then you're able to, once they read material or see something in a new light, then they're going to start asking questions, because it's almost like meeting a new person,
Hmm.
right? Like, oh, we didn't know you had this under your belt. And then once I pitched to them, I walked them through my pitch for the project, then it felt like they really responded to what I was doing,
Hmm.
and they really responded to what I wanted to accomplish. So I think like understanding that, it's just like obviously you're seen one way when you're doing something, but it's like once you introduced, the something that changes the element or changes the weather in the room, it's
Hmm.
like then you get an opportunity to show yourself again. You've already shown that you have backbone, that you show up on time, that it's that you
Hmm.
do your job, and you're not just, you don't care about the job, you care about something else, so you're fucking off, and you're not doing that.
Hmm.
So I've already was able to show my track record there, as a professional, but also as a creative, with a
Hmm.
good idea and hopefully a great script, that they would be interested in.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into your latest film, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Maybe to start out, you can just give us a quick overview. What is sort of the log line or the pitch for this film?
I'd say it's a modern take, inspiration by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the book, in
Hmm.
a contemporary lens through the eyes of a teenage black girl.
Okay. And so where did this idea come from? Obviously, we're all sort of familiar with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein,
Yeah.
but what was sort of the genesis of this idea where you would take this modern sort of reinterpretation of this story?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of different things. I mean, obviously, it was the literature. One thing was for sure that I wanted to make sure I was taking all my inspirations from the literature and not necessarily, it's like other movies outside, like, It's Alive and, that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
like, mostly I wanted this story to be interpreted from the literature itself. And also big influences. I have two big sisters who, mentored me when I was little. And so like I wanted to do right by them in this movie. And so it was a lot of those things.
Now, what do you mean do right by them in the movie?
A lot of the female characters were inspired by them.
I see. So
Yeah. So it was a mixture of those things.
Gotcha. So let's just talk about your writing process for a minute. What does your writing process look like? Do you write in the morning? Do you write late at night? Do you go to Starbucks? You need that ambient noise. You have a home office. Just how do you go about sort of getting pen to paper?
Well, right now, because, while writing this and then, also my first movie that I did, I have to work, so for me, it's like I have to get up really fucking early. And I write, before I go to work, and then I go to work. And then, I'm kind of meta writing in my head, like, it's like while I'm at job. And then when I come home, I finish off what I'm supposed to accomplish. I remember reading about Elmer Leonard and his process. And he was always kind of like, yeah, I wake up and before I turn on the coffee, I write 2 pages or something like that. And he would do stuff like that. And so that really spoke to me, as well as Stephen King's kind of like, he said, I mean, when I read his book, he did more, but the legend was like he was doing 5 pages a day or something like that. So I kind of just was setting a goal like that for myself, where I'm like, okay, like I'm getting up early, before I do breakfast, before I do anything or whatever, I'm gonna write a certain amount, and I'm gonna make sure I hit a certain limit every day that I feel is right, and so that was kind of like my process for this.
Yeah. And I've heard Jack London is famous. I can't remember if it was 1,000 publishable words a day or 2,000, what the number was, but there's a lot of writers out there that have that real strict discipline of just churning out the pages, because it is hard work. How much time do you spend preparing to write versus in final draft? How much time is spent on the index cards outlining, and then how much time is actually spent in final draft cranking out script pages for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really an index card guy. I'm more of just like, Word document outline, where I'm just kind of like writing these pages. I guess you could call it a treatment, it's like I do like treatments. And like I do that. And then, it's like obviously there's research, that I'm doing. And so, yeah, I would say, measure twice, cut once, it's like I do a lot of meta thinking, you know what I mean? And like researching and jotting ideas down in my little journal about stuff. And and then I start getting into the thick of it with the writing. Of course, like there's always going to be rewrites and re-ironing or whatever, but I try to think things through a little bit, which can be dangerous for a writer because
And so on this film, like just time wise, what are we talking? Like the outlining stage, it took you 6 months to sort of outline and let the idea percolate, and then 6 months to write it. I'm just curious, just roughly.
God, I wish I had like an exact number of how long it took to write. I only have like around the ballpark of the time. I know I pretty much finished a draft around 2018, and I might have started like earlier in the year or whatever, around either 17 or early 18, maybe 16, but like I know it's around the 2016 to 2018 range was when it was kind of popping off.
And what does your development process look like once you have a draft that you feel confident to show others? Do you have some writer, actor, director, producer friends that you send it out to and get notes? Just what does that development process look like for you?
It depends. Like I'll show it to like a couple people. I don't really like to expose it to too many people. It's like I kind of give it to my manager and get his thoughts, and then I get, it's like some of my, 1 or 2 friends just to kind of get their temperature on it, it's like just to see kind of how people are reacting to it, but other than that, it's like I don't really like to expose it to me. I'm very particular, it's just like, so, it's like I might give it to one actor and see what what do they think? I might give it to someone who's a director and be like, what do they think? And, obviously my manager, and just kind of just see how different people feel about it, because I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like for your film? When is it coming out and how can people check it out?
Yeah, June 9th in theaters.
In theaters. Gotcha.
In theaters, baby. Yeah.
So, perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Anything you're comfortable sharing, Twitter, Facebook, a blog, Instagram, I will put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm in IG. I'm on Instagram. Story is King. That's where you can find me.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
Thank you so much.
hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
I just want to talk quickly about SYS Select. It's a service for screenwriters to help them sell their screenplays and get writing assignments. The first part of the service is the SYS Select Screenplay Database. Screenwriters upload their screenplays along with a logline, synopsis, and other pertinent information like budget and genre, and then producers search for and hopefully find screenplays they want to produce. Dozens of producers are in the system looking for screenplays right now. There have been a number of success stories come out of the service. You can find out about all the SYS Select successes by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Also on SYS podcast episode 222, I talked with Steve Deering, who was the first official success story to come out of the SYS Select database. When you join SYS Select, you get access to the screenplay database along with all the other services that we're providing to SYS Select members. These services include the newsletter. This monthly newsletter goes out to a list of over 400 producers who are actively seeking writers and screenplays. Each SYS Select member can pitch one screenplay in this monthly newsletter. We also provide screenwriting leads. We have partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads services, so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, we've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These leads run the gamut. There's producers looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. They're looking for shorts, features, TV, and web series pilots, all types of projects. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. Also, you get access to the SYS Select forum, where we will help you with your logline and query letter and answer any screenwriting related questions that you might have. We also have a number of screenwriting classes that are recorded and available in the SYS Select forum. These are all the classes that I've done over the years, so you'll have access to those whenever you want once you join. The classes cover every part of writing your screenplay, from concept to outlining to the first act, second act, third act, as well as other topics like writing short films and pitching your projects in person. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, please go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that is sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Eisk, whose horror anthology series, The Dead Hour, is being released on Tubi and Amazon. We talk about this series, how it all came together for him. This is a project that he and some of his buddies originally bootstrapped. They did a couple of episodes, went back out, were able to raise some money. Just over time, they were able to build this into a bigger and bigger production just by doing some episodes, some really low budget episodes, and just kind of letting it snowball from there. And now, as I said, it's being released on Tubi and Amazon here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that episode next week. We will dig into The Dead Hour. That's the show. Thank you for listening.